Hello everyone, this is Crypto BitLaw, here with another blockchain legal brief, and today we're going to do a quick breakdown of the crypto bill that was recently released by a bipartisan pair of senators, Senator Gillibrand and Senator Lummis. But before we dive in, please, if you like this content, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And with that said, let's jump right on in. Alright, now before we start diving in and doing some analysis, some overviews of this bill, I think that the prerequisite should be that anything that's in this bill as of now, the majority of it, it's likely to change before it actually gets to the point where it would be approved. It has to go through all of these different committees. There has to be the politics involved where there's, some tit for tat, a little quid pro quo. Oh, I give you this concession in one aspect, and then you give me what I want with regards to this crypto bill. And, that's just kind of how politics is. And so take everything you see here with a grain of salt. This bill's going to likely go through a lot of different revisions. Right now, as it stands, it's pretty long. It's like 69-something pages. And so we're just going to try to give a brief overview of the bill as it stands and kind of hit on some key points and then just kind of take it on back home and do a little bit of analysis. So let's start here with this Cointelegraph article. It just kind of gives a nice general overview of the bill. It says the Lummis-Gillibrand bill establishes SEC CFTC balance of power over crypto markets. The comprehensive new bill sorts out regulators and addresses taxes, environmental impact, security, and other major questions surrounding digital assets. They say the long-awaited Responsible Financial Innovation Act to create a regulatory framework for digital assets was introduced in the United States Senate on Tuesday. The official text of the 69-page document was also released, and you could see that right here. We're going to link that down in the description below in case you want to check it out. As you can see, it's pretty lengthy, all 69 pages worth of this. And I mean, for those of you that are, not well versed in actually reading the law and analyzing the law, I mean, every single word was chosen for a reason. For example, words like any and shall and must and may. I mean, they may not mean much to the layperson, the average everyday person that's not really well versed and trained in reading the law, but each one of these words has a specific particularized meaning, right? And the difference between may and shall and must and can, all of these words, they have weight and they have syntax. And so, when taken together and read, there's a old legal adage, when you construe statutes together, that is parts of the law, and when you construe them, you have to construe them and read them in what's known as in pari materia. That means in conjunction with the other parts of the statute. And so if one part of this bill isn't clear, you have to look to what's surrounding it in order to try to decipher meaning. It's this old legal interpretation method. And so if you want to take a look at this bill, you'll see it right here. It's linked in the description below. We're not going to go through the whole thing. It's way too voluminous to actually go through the entire thing, but we're just going to kind of give a general overview of where this bill is. So going back to this article, it says the bipartisan bill sponsored by Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming and Kristen Gillibrand of New York addresses CFTC and SEC jurisdiction, stablecoin regulation, banking, tax treatment of digital assets, and interagency coordination, according to a statement. The statement continues, understanding that most digital assets are much more similar to commodities than securities, the bill gives the CFTC clear authority over applicable digital asset spot markets. And so this is a big theme we're going to see play out here. The bill, in general terms, tends to define digital assets like Bitcoin as commodities as opposed to securities. But then on the flip side, depending on how you would interpret some of the text of the bill, certain altcoins, or rather the majority of altcoins, would be considered securities. So let's continue on and see if we can't get a little more clarity out of this. The senators appeared on CNBC Tuesday morning And a large part of the interview revolved around splitting responsibilities between the SEC and the CFTC. Quote, "We're trying to just fit the digital asset world into our current regulatory framework. We spent a lot of time on the definition of the modern Howey test," Lummis added. And for those of you that are unaware, the Howey test is the four-part test that determines whether or not an asset is deemed to be a security, right? And it comes from this old case, Howey. It was about orange groves, you know, decades and decades ago, I think in like the early 1900s or something like that. So it's a somewhat outdated analysis and test, but I guess it's still applicable. So let's keep going. Lummis, she said that she was meeting with SEC Chairman Gary Gensler that day, and Gillibrand had met with him the day before. She added, quote, "We're going to continue to work with both the CFTC and the SEC to make sure that we have found the right mix of using the Howey test to sort out which of those agencies can best regulate. We think that because we're using the Howey test, it's going to come out just fine." And I think that that's one of the problems with this bill. I mean, because they're acting as legislators here and lawmakers, they don't need the Howey test. I mean, they could just devise their own framework, a new framework. They don't have to go back to this outdated Howey test, which was a court-interpreted test. It was devised by the courts in order to give clarity for that which clarity did not exist, right? And so they could just, because they're playing the role of lawmaker and legislator here, they could just develop their own test and just say, hey, this thing goes in this box. This thing goes in that box. If you meet this definition right here, you are classified as a commodity. This definition, you're a security. All right. It's our job, they say, to fundamentally for Congress to write these laws and to get the regulators to implement them. They don't decide what they get to keep and what they don't, Gillibrand said in the interview. She's just talking about what I was just saying. It's their job as Congress to write the laws and then for the regulators to implement the laws that they write so they could develop their own framework. Gensler has been adamant in declaring most cryptocurrencies are securities, subject to his agency's authority. Well, who'da thunk? Gensler wants more power, huh? What do you know? The CFTC, which is far smaller than the SEC, will be authorized to collect fees from entities engaged in cash or spot digital asset activities to finance its additional regulatory responsibilities. The bill addresses a range of issues relating to crypto. It commissions a study on the environmental impact of digital assets, creates an advisory committee on innovation, and orders the development of cybersecurity guidelines. It also creates a tax structure and mandates an analysis of the use of digital assets in retirement savings. Quote, "It takes a long time to build a regulatory framework for a new industry," Gillibrand said. "The bill now has to pass through the Senate Banking, Agriculture, Intelligence, and Financial Services Committees." Wow, this is a murderer's row. 1, 2, 3, 4. No less than 4 different committees. Good luck. I mean, they're going to pick the meat from the bone on this thing by the time we're done with it. It's going to look nothing like it does now. Mark my words on that. Blockchain Association Executive Director Kristen Smith said in a statement on the association's website, quote, "The bipartisan legislation announced today by Senators Lummis and Gillibrand represents a milestone moment for crypto policy and a major step forward for the crypto industry in Washington." Okay, so let's turn now to this CryptoNews.com article. It says, here's what U.S. senators put into the new crypto-friendly bill. And they say, in a bipartisan effort to pave the way for crypto-friendly regulations in the U.S., Wyoming Senator Cynthia Lummis and Democratic Senator representing the state of New York, Kristen Gillibrand, are set to introduce a new draft bill today dubbed the Responsible Financial Innovation Act. Okay, well, we already know all of this, so let's just take a look at what it does per the section-by-section overview. Creates definitions for digital asset, virtual currency, payment stablecoin, smart contract, and similar important terms in the space. Okay, so that's good. Now we actually have a defined set of definitions by which to apply to these terms, these buzzwords, when dealing with them in a legal context. Provides a de minimis exclusion of up to $200 US per transactions from a taxpayer's gross income for the use of virtual currency for payments of goods and services under specified conditions. Well, I mean, that's not very much, but it's something. So each time you transfer a little bit of crypto to somebody for a coffee or say, you won't be taxed on it. So that's good. Clarifies the definition of, quote, broker for the purposes of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, new reporting requirement on digital assets, delaying the implementation date to January 1st, 2025. And for those of you that are unfamiliar, there was this issue in one of the recent they call it the Jobs Act. I don't know if it was the Build Back Better Act or whatnot, but there was this hidden crypto provision that wanted to regulate, you know, what the definition of a broker was and possibly include stakers. And so if you received money from staking, you had a duty to report everyone that you were involved with. And then if you were a validator, you had similar obligations to 1099 certain people that were involved in your transactions. It was just a mess. Continuing on, it says that it specifies that certain decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs, are business entities rather, for the purposes of the tax code. All right, so now DAOs are going to be treated as business entities in terms of taxes. It establishes that digital asset lending agreements are generally not taxable events. So if you are going to take a loan against your crypto, then according to the government now, that won't be taxable. I mean, it wasn't beforehand, but now there's clarity on it. It requires the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, to adopt guidance on or clarifications on longstanding issues in the digital asset industry. Okay, so I mean, I knew that the IRS already had some sort of guidance, but I guess we're going to get a little more clarification from the IRS on how they're going to tax crypto. Declares that digital assets obtained from mining or staking activities do not form part of a taxpayer's gross income until the disposition of those assets. So now we have, in clear black and white legal terms, the fact that if you derive crypto from mining or staking, you are not responsible for the taxes on those assets that you either mined or staked, or the assets that you received from staking, until you actually sell them, and then you occur the taxable event. Makes a clear distinction between digital assets that are commodities or securities. Grants the CFTC exclusive spot market jurisdiction over all fungible digital assets which are not securities. Requires all issuers of payment stablecoins to 1. Maintain high-quality liquid assets valued at 100% of the face value of all outstanding payment stablecoins. 2. Provide public disclosures on the assets backing the stablecoin and their value. And 3. Have the ability to redeem all outstanding payment stablecoins at par in legal tender. So this is very good. I mean, this is what people have been clamoring for a while. Stablecoin industry regulation. And I mean, this is completely common sense. If you're going to back a stablecoin, if you're going to issue a stablecoin, it has to be backed by good, legit, liquid assets, none of this junk Chinese commercial paper like Tether has. You have to have disclosures that are clear on the backing of the assets and the value, and you have to have the ability to redeem all outstanding stablecoins at par value in legal tender. I mean, that's just common sense. And so we have a little more BS, and a little more BS, and a little more BS. So, I mean, that's about the long and the short of it. And based on everything that I read, I mean, that pretty much sums it up. So, what do we have here? We have the first, at least legitimate, as far as I'm concerned, attempt at creating a new regulatory framework in the United States for this burgeoning, fast-growing industry. And I commend these two ladies, Senator Gillibrand and Senator Lummis, for coming together in a bipartisan manner and trying to get something done, right? And it might not be everything everybody wanted. You can't be all things to all people at all times, but at least they have something there on paper. And I mean, when you separate the wheat from the chaff, most of this makes sense. Most of it is common sense regulation. I mean, most of it are things that people have been, you know, just wanting on a basic level, like stablecoin regulation, saying that, hey, something like Bitcoin's more likely than not a commodity, and Bitcoin exchanges, crypto exchanges are going to be regulated by the CFTC. All right, they're going to try to probably get a little more clarity on when and where the Howey test will and will not apply, and kind of hash out some of the kinks in terms of what altcoins would fall under the jurisdiction of the SEC. Because here we have this framework where everything that's not a security is CFTC, deemed a commodity, but it still kind of leaves a little open-ended room for interpretation, at least as far as Gensler would be concerned, as to what would fall within the jurisdiction of his wheelhouse, right? And so I think this is a good first step. Like we said earlier, this thing has to go through the murderer's row of, I think, no less than 4 different committees, and all of the different politics and negotiation and inclusions and exclusions that are going to result from those committees before this thing even has a chance of seeing daylight and getting an opportunity to get on the president's desk to get signed into law. And so there's a lot in here, and I think we even forgot to mention, but we mentioned earlier, even guidance for the IRS to do some work on clarifying some of their guidelines on how they intend to tax crypto. Another big thing we got was the whole mining and staking tax implications. They're actually trying to hash that out. I think things like that, that'll probably stay in. Bitcoin as a commodity, that'll probably stay in. Stablecoin framework, that'll stay in. Some of the little nitpicky things could get changed around, but once it's final, once they have a final draft that's made through all the committees and then it gets submitted to the president's desk, that's when things just got real. That's when we're really going to break this down and go through it piece by piece, line by line, highlighting all the little keywords in there, like we were talking about earlier, the difference between the word shall and may and must and can, all of those, and then read those together and then try to decipher out some deeper meaning to each section of a finalized version of this. But what we have now is good. It's good for now. It is a general framework, a starting point from which to work from, and then ultimately we'll work towards something that's going to be a little more finalized, and then that hopefully will see the light of day and get across the president's desk and get signed into law. I think this is what we need. This is what the industry needs, because in order for widespread financial institutions, big smart money, as they say, to come in, we need certainty. There's one thing the markets don't like, it's uncertainty. So I really think big money, smart money, big institutions are waiting for legal clarity with regards to how digital assets are handled by the government. And this is the perfect starting point to give them just that. And so, with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. And with that said, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video.